is it.
With both? Hello, everybody.
You gotta turn it on.
Hello, everybody. I think I have to speak into both of these microphones. Hi, everybody. My name is Jeff Warren. I live over the hill in Pearl Street, and I've been part of the Neighborhood Council Working Group, part of the group that's developed the ideas and the presentation tonight, and worked really hard to try to move this process forward. And I'm going to just make some brief welcome to everybody. Thank you for coming out tonight. A couple items. We realized on your agenda, which is this pink sheet, we realized in the discussion, number 3, people will ask about the election, which is number 5. So we're going to move the election one to just before then, so that we don't have to keep saying, oh, we'll talk about it in the election section, if that's all right with everybody. Just a small ordering issue. The other thing I wanted to mention is, you know, the Neighborhood Council Working Group includes a lot of people with a lot of different opinions, and we've managed to figure out how to work together pretty respectfully and constructively over the past months. And one of the ways we've done this is through some basic ground rules, sort of an agreement for participation. And I thought I'd just read those out as a starting point for the discussions we have tonight, because I think they've helped us be our best selves. Real quickly, they're in outline format, so forgive the lack of grammar. Everyone participate, no one dominate. Use I statements, meaning I believe, or one speaker at a time. Please don't interrupt each other. Disagree without being disagreeable. Stay open to new ways of doing things and be genuinely curious. Critique ideas, not people. Respect each other's thinking and value their contributions. Listen for understanding, inquire and ask before you advocate or persuade. Staying on schedule is everyone's responsibility. Please honor the time limits. Be brief and meaningful when voicing your opinion. Seek common ground and understanding, not problems and conflict. And remember that we're working towards the same goals. So keep those in mind, and we should be fine. I'm going to hand it over to everyone who has the real agenda items to talk about. Oh, sorry?
We're going to raise our hands and preach first.
Oh, yeah, actually, there's something that we've been doing at the working group meetings that I really like, which is these ground rules. At every meeting, we actually raise our hands to affirm them. So for those of us in the working group and anyone else, I'd ask you all to please, affirm these ground rules by raising your hand. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Bill.
Good evening. My name is Bill Gage, and I wanted to start out and kind of talk about the background, why we need a neighborhood council. And in 2013, the city announced major neighborhood development in Union Square. There have been 3 years of community process with a civic advisory committee, a neighborhood plan, and discussions about zoning. The process helped to realize that we want a representative, democratic, independent organization that can represent the Union Square neighborhood. The Union Square Neighborhood Council is being formed to protect community values, reduce displacement, and ensure the community's shared goals for Union Square's future. Can you move to the next one? This is a plan for the borders of the Union Square neighborhood. And this was part of the summer vision plan and the plan for Union Square. Can we go to the next one? Okay, these are the D blocks which have been designated by the city for redevelopment. And the city has prioritized a commercial residential split of 60-40% for all the D blocks. The 60-40 split will reduce the residential tax burden by increasing the amount of commercial taxes. The city's development goals are to transform Union Square into a commercial district in order to be able to create jobs, while also letting the city pay off bonds for the Green Line extension, the new Somerville High School, sewers, firehouse, and a new police station. It'll avoid and lessen increases to residential taxes in order to minimize displacement of residents while letting us take advantage of development for our community to mitigate displacement that is occurring as well and improve the physical environment through green space, community space, smart parking rules, while keeping Union Square, Union Square. There will possibly be some negative impacts from the development. And those negative impacts are going to be increased land values, which may displace residents and businesses through rising rents and taxes. More traffic could increase pollution and accidents. Small luxury residential units might not house growing families. Construction impacts could harm existing businesses. New aesthetics could alter the character of the neighborhood. And the increased cost of living could drive out immigrants and the elderly. Poor design could mar views, cast shadows, and restricted access could interrupt traffic flow and reduce public space. Chains and franchises could reduce the circulation of money locally. And I guess, how can the Union Square Neighborhood Council help? The Union Square Neighborhood Council will provide input into key legislative provisions and has already done that on zoning and the Community Benefits Ordinance. It will negotiate a community benefits agreement with US2 and other developers. It would recommend how to use community benefit funds to benefit Union Square and attempt to mitigate the negative impact from development on residents and businesses, as well as provide ongoing input to the Board of Aldermen, the Planning Board, and the city. On developing the Neighborhood Council, over the past 6 months, the working group for the Union Square Neighborhood Council has been open to anyone with an interest in the future of Union Square. And that is owners, renters, business owners, workers, artists, seniors, and members of the locust group and the community advisory committee for Union Square. It would establish our own protocols and democratic processes, and it's a forum for discussing ordinances that will affect Union Square. And hopefully it'll develop the structure and election process that is going to be presented later on tonight. And now I'd like to turn it over to Jacob Kramer.
Thanks, Bill. So I'm just going to give an overview of the group that came up with what we're presenting tonight. We've been a group that's meeting since about February, which arose out of some other community groups known as Locust and CAC, but also bringing in people who had never been involved in a community process like this, such as myself. We've been meeting about every 10 days for 2 to 3 hours, trying to keep things open by having on weekends and also during the week. We've developed a process of co-facilitation, agenda management, and circulating minutes of what happened, so if people weren't able to make it, they were able to keep abreast of what had transpired at the last meeting. We adopted a robust code of conduct, which you heard at the beginning of the meeting. And we also split off into subcommittees that came up with different approaches to things people were interested in doing. For instance, developing a structure, coming up with feedback for zoning, and things of that sort. And then we always kept to an idea that if we were going to approve anything major in the group, it had to be by a 2/3 of majority of people who came to the meeting. And there were a number of things that came up multiple times that we would reaffirm by 2/3 majority. And so that's, if we do have a vote, that would be the threshold that we would have to pass in order to move something along. So this is just a sort of calendar of what we were up to, and just to give you a sense of how long this process has taken and how much effort has gone into it. Our first draft of bylaws was back in January, and that was bylaws and structure, and that was a structure that was an all-appointed body. So that was going to include appointments from various neighborhood groups, and that was discussed. And then during that time, we also decided that this group would need to have goals and values, which Michelle is going to present, and we all felt like we could really get behind those. And then the sort of appointed model, people in the group were like, well, why should it be appointed? Maybe we should have a hybrid model, which would be appointed and elected. So we investigated that, and that was presented by a subcommittee called the Structure Subcommittee. But then the group, after that was presented, they decided they didn't want it. And so then we moved on to a different structure, which was an elected structure. And we settled on something we're calling stakeholder membership, which I'll go over in a little bit. Next slide. And then we've sort of shifted focus to work on zoning recommendations, which was circulated and signed, but not submitted in the name of the working group, just signed by individuals who felt like they wanted to have their voice heard by the alderman. Then we sort of came up with our decision-making framework, and then we had created bylaws that were presented and amendments were proposed, and then the amendments bylaws passed, and then we presented publicly in this room to members who had been part of different groups called the Community Advisory Committee and the Locust Group, and we got feedback from them. And then we amended the bylaws and membership and structure based on the feedback that we got at that previous meeting. And some parts of the feedback were taken up by the group and others were not, but it was definitely amended during that process. And now that brings us to here. So what we're going to present to you is a structure and membership model that came out of many months of discussion and debate, and I think you'll really like what you see. But first, background on the vision and mission.
All right, so, hi, everyone. I will. So before I start, I would like to say, if this is your first meeting, welcome. Not so long ago, sorry? I'm going to, though. Don't worry, everybody, I'm cool. Okay, I actually know what I'm doing. This is great. Okay, so that actually made me a lot more at ease. So anyway, not so long ago, I was in your position, and there's going to be a lot coming at you. Don't be scared off. If for any reason, or at any point you were part of this process, and you got frustrated, as I have been, I've been in your position many times, and you walked away for a bit, welcome back. Today, I thought I was going to leave at least 4 times, so, it's okay. And if you have been part of this process for 3 or more years, wow, God bless you. It's really an incredible amount of work that's been done to get us here. So my job tonight is threefold. First, how did I get involved? Then I will talk about vision, mission, values, and goals. And then I will talk directly to the concept of legitimacy in this process, in the election to come. So, my name is Michelle Hansen. Finally, we get there. About 6 months ago, my father, William, over here, asked me to come to a meeting. So, umpteen numbers of meetings later, I'm standing here today to ask you for your support in establishing the Union Square Neighborhood Council. So we're going to move on to vision, values, mission, values, and goals. So I'm not going to necessarily read everything that's on here because I just can't do it that way. But I am going to recite the mission. The mission of the Union Square Neighborhood Council is to help shape the future of Union Square as an increasingly inclusive and vibrant neighborhood and commercial center, built around the aspirations of the people who live here and work here. Okay, all of the values are important. These are just a few that we've included, which is inclusion, wellness, and environmental consciousness. And there are also many important goals, some of which we have no idea what they are going to be because as things change, the goals will change. But these are some that I think are important. We want to minimize displacement and promote affordability. We want to increase economic opportunity, as well as, well, we say build community. What I'd like to say is that we want to connect existing communities and welcome new people. Now I really want to consider vision, mission, values, and goals from a slightly different perspective. As I was contemplating what I was going to say here tonight, I really realized that US2 and any future developers also have a vision, have a mission, have values and goals. A part of what I found when researching this is something like this, which I think is good. So they want to create environmentally sensitive urban communities that combine innovative architectural design with high quality construction. This seems to be incredibly important, and I think it should be important to us as well. They want to work directly with the community. This is also something that is reiterated over and over again, which I also think is incredibly important, and we want to work with them as well. Another large part of any developer's goal is to make a profit for the shareholders. I in no way mention this as an accusation. Like, I'm not saying how dare a corporation make a profit. That is not my bag at all. This is just a fact. It is also a fact that US2 and any future developer will diligently and unapologetically, as any business should and will, make every attempt to make their vision, mission, values, and goals a reality. That's their job, and I accept that. And I think we should. So as a community, what is our job? Number one, this is what I've come to identify the areas of shared visions and goals that we have with whoever comes here, to seek cooperation and compromise where possible. These are not dirty words. We do not become compromised if we compromise. It just shows that we're thinking. We have to shine a bright light. And in my mind, this bright light is a really gigantic laser beam. To shine a bright light, sorry, I've lost my spot for 1 second. When any developer's vision, mission, values, and goals stand in the way of our community's ability to make our visions, missions, values, and goals a reality. We should do this diligently and unapologetically. That is our job. Fourth, we should hold to account developers, public officials, elected or appointed, and each other, to make sure we are all working in good faith for the community. So how do we do this? Well, as a lifelong Girl Scout member, be prepared. And I'm going to quote my friend Wig, we're going to know our stuff. So if it's about zoning, we're going to know more about zoning than anybody else knows about zoning. If it's about a community development ordinance or community development... Community benefit ordinance, and the other thing is a CBA. Now who used to complain about CBA, CBO, only know these terms, sorry about that. We're going to know more about all those things than everybody else. We are going to work harder than any developer to achieve our goals because this is where we live and work. So by definition, it should be more important to us than it is to them. We are going to use our resources wisely. Our most valuable, again, working on the Girl Scout thing, anybody who's a Girl Scout should know this. Our most valuable resources are our people. And that brings me to the issue of legitimacy. I have been amazed since the beginning of this undertaking for me, the number of organizations and individuals who are concerned what is happening here in my little Union Square that I grew up in. So, this is what I know. Union Square neighbors, I think I saw Rob, I know I saw Andy. How you doing? Wave back if you see me. There you guys are, great. Union Square Main Streets, I know I saw Esther, she's in the house. I'm not sure if I saw Pat, but he may be here.
Yeah.
Union United, where is Bill C? And there's lots of Bills, that's another thing you need to know about us. Karen? Karen, there you are, what's up?
Yeah.
Okay. Green and Open Space, I know Tori is supposed to be here. I also call them the green people, she knows that, so it's not like a weird thing. Anyway, I don't see you, but I know you're supposed to be here. So, and last but not least, Chamber of Commerce. I don't see Tom, which is very odd, because I always see Tom. So, he's not here, but I'm sure he'll be here Saturday. So I could go on, and I really could go on, as my children well know, pointing out people who I have come to know and ultimately respect. It has never, and all the time that I have been doing this process, occurred to me to call into question the legitimacy of any of your organizations. So, which I have never heard of, honestly, and know almost nothing about 6 months ago. Again, I do not and I will never call into question the legitimacy of your organizations. This does not mean that outreach did not occur. It doesn't mean that I'm going to back a little bit. Organizations which I have not been a part in creating and was never invited to join. Now, I'm not mad about this. It doesn't mean that outreach didn't occur. It could have. I might have missed it. There might have been a flyer. There might have been a call. There might have been a knock on my door. This is really a possibility. But I missed it. I'm not a member of any of these organizations that I have spoken about here, and I hold no animosity towards them. As a person who grew up in this neighborhood, where my husband and I have chosen to raise our daughters, in the city of Somerville, where generations of both my husband and I's family have lived for 100 or more years, what I know for sure is that I am not afraid of conversations about legitimacy and trust issues. Trust me, really understand this. This has been something we have been worried about and talking about forever. Many members of my family are here in support. We just want to move forward. I mean that in the real sense of the word, move forward. Not to ignore, not to say that other people's opinions don't matter, but truly move forward for our neighborhood. This is our home. This place is so important to us, and we want to protect it. So here's the good news. No matter what you've heard, this is the beginning of the Neighborhood Council, Union Square Neighborhood Council. I encourage every person here, regardless of whether or not you vote for the establishment of this council, to join us, to run for office, to find somebody that you know shares your vision, your mission, and your goals, and support them. I thank you so much for your time, and now I'd like to turn it back to my friend Jacob.
Thanks, Michelle. That was great. So before I begin, I'd like to say there is interpretation for foreign languages, if anybody wants that. I don't know which ones we have available. Which? Haitian, Creole, Spanish, and Portuguese. Sure. Yeah. Oh yeah. Can the interpreters come up and introduce themselves in their languages?
Good evening, my name is Irma Flores, I'm the Spanish liaison for the city of Somerville, and I'm here to provide interpretation. Mi nombre es Irma Flores y estoy aquí para proporcionar interpretación en español.
Right here. My name is Jenny Saint-Surin. I'm here for Haitian Creole translation. Si on a besoin d'interprétation créole haïtienne, moi capable d'aider.
Okay. So now we're going to move on to the next section of the presentation. Next slide. So basically this is a very, very brief introduction to the goals of the bylaws. We're not going through them page by page right now. But the idea when we came up with bylaws for the neighborhood council was to provide a framework for a founding board. And these bylaws sort of emerged before we even decided on having an elected board. We knew that we would want some kind of structure that had them, how they interact with each other, how they make decisions, how they avoid conflicts of interest, and how they speak on behalf of the organization. So in those guidelines, which you can find, I think we have some copies here, and also you can find them on our website, you'll find guidelines for how the organization will hold and run meetings, how it can make decisions, but also how the founding board relates to the membership and gets buy-in from the larger membership, which would be a body much like this one, to get approval if there were any large decisions, such as a community benefits agreement or changes to the bylaws. They would have the ability to speak publicly on behalf of the membership. They could draft and ratify more permanent bylaws, because what we're proposing right now is an interim council for 1 year only, to negotiate a community benefits agreement, to receive and disperse funds if such funds are available, and to make sure that they have guidance in avoiding conflicts of interest. So this, probably that slide should have gone after this slide, but I'm going to introduce you to two parts of the neighborhood council. You can think of it as this vision that we came up with as an overarching organization which has two basic parts. One is the membership, and this is the large body of people. And this is anyone who, it's open to anyone who lives in Somerville or who works in Union Square. And this is a stakeholder model. So I'm just going to read this. This is from our bylaws, so you can tell the kind of legalistic language we are using. To become a member of the Union Square Neighborhood Council, a person must meet at least one of the 4 criteria below. Be a resident of Somerville, work at or own a business located within the boundaries of Union Square, own real estate property, residential or commercial, located within the boundaries of Union Square, lack a permanent address but receive support services within the boundaries of Union Square. And then there's a special clause saying non-members may still attend Union Square Neighborhood Council meetings and participate fully, with the exception of participation in voting. Because we realize that there are a lot of people who are affected by Union Square who use it, especially people on the Cambridge side of the border, and they may have opinions they would like to express in a public meeting. And so we welcome them, but they would not necessarily be able to vote. And then we ask that every member sort of define themselves as a stakeholder. And what this means is that you have a stake in Union Square. You have a reason why you care about how things will proceed and what happens in this community. So those include, the ones I mentioned before, for instance, working in Union Square, or simply living in Union Square or living in Somerville at large. But also we want people, if they come, to really define themselves in terms of the square. So that would be, for example, participation in religious, social, or community organizations in Union Square, participation in schools or classes in Union Square, provision of services from an agency in Union Square, or even recent displacement from Union Square, because this is something that we're seeing. People who lived here once are not necessarily able to continue living here, and they've sort of pushed further and further out into other neighborhoods in Somerville, but they still have a stake here because it's a place that they really care about. Or they have strong identification with Union Square despite not living within its defined boundaries. So that might be someone who lives out in Davis, but they love Union Square and they just can't get enough of it. And so that's the kind of thing that is, it's informal, but it allows our members to sort of stake a claim and really consider why they care so much and why they want to participate in the process. So now I'm going to introduce you to the other part of the body, which is the founding board. So this is an elected board. We've, through lots of discussion, we decided 15 seats would be a good size. It's big enough to include lots of different kinds of stakeholders, but it's not so large as to be unwieldy. And they would be a founding board that will execute the responsibilities of the neighborhood council in its first year. They would serve for 1 year. Oh, here's a nice part. All neighborhood council board members must be over 16 years of age and live or work in Union Square. So that is very important. So we had 16 years of age or older to try to get interest from maybe some of the younger people and students who live in Union Square. But this requirement is very key, and I want to be very clear. So membership is wider, and it's based on that stakeholder idea. But if you want to run for the founding board, you actually have to live within the boundaries of the neighborhood that was on an earlier slide, or work in Union Square. So that sort of makes sure that the people who are on the board have a slightly closer relationship to Union Square. And then if a board member is displaced from Union Square, he or she may serve out the duration of his or her term. The founding board members shall be elected by eligible members. The 15-member board is empowered by the membership to negotiate on behalf of the neighborhood, negotiate community benefits, disperse funds. I don't know what else got cut off. But essentially execute the responsibilities of the organization. And this is the structure of the founding board. So this was subject of much discussion and debate. And the idea here, there are lots of different proposals as I described over that timeline part. But this was sort of, the idea was to gather people from different stakeholding groups and make sure that they had a seat on, there were seats for them on the founding board. So there are 15 seats. There are 2 for homeowners who have their primary residence in Union Square. There are 3 for renters who have their primary residence in Union Square. There are 2 for business owners or representatives of that business. And then there are 2 for workers at businesses in Union Square. And then there are 2 that are meant to be filled by representatives from charitable or religious or educational or advocacy groups or organizations. And this is more specifically open to all formal and informal groups based in Somerville. So this is, there was some question at our last meeting, could maybe some organization that is not based in Somerville, could they run a candidate? The answer is no. The organization has to be based in Somerville. Examples might be Green and Open Somerville, the Welcome Project, the Community Growing Center. Those are organizations that are active in Somerville, and they could run candidates for one of those 2 seats. There are 2 seats for immigrants, because Somerville is proud of its immigrant community. We wanted to make sure that they have a seat at the table. And that is anyone born outside the United States is eligible for those seats. And then there are 2 open seats, which are open to anyone who lives or works in Somerville but doesn't want to define themselves by any of these other categories. And so this is a more graphical representation of that same concept, with each of those stakeholder categories represented by a different color, and the white dots are the open seats. And then I think Benny is going to talk about next steps, where we would go from here.
Thank you. My name is Benny Wheat. I live on Berkeley Street, over just outside of the boundaries of the Union Square neighborhood. Okay, so starting at this moment now, the next steps are to have a discussion about all that we have described to you here, and then to vote. So the idea is that we are going in this meeting to have a vote about whether the Union Square Neighborhood Council shall commence. So that's going to happen today in this meeting. And then once that hopefully passes, then we're going to have elections for this founding board that Jacob was describing. So there's going to be a series of events that lead to the elections, and I wonder, oh, it's right there. So I'm going to talk in a minute about who can run, how you run, what the process is going to look like in a little more detail. But the basic outline of the events is going to be that you can submit yourself as a candidate, and then there's going to be elections taking place on 2 days. Similar to this meeting today, there's another meeting happening on Saturday that will repeat the same content for people who can't make a meeting on a Wednesday night. The elections will happen in the same kind of way. So it's going to take place on 2 nights or two occasions to try to accommodate different people's schedules. Voting will be in person on those 2 days. And then we will have a founding board, which will commence with all the work of the board, making any amendments to the bylaws, doing all the stuff. Great. Oh, but hold on. First, before we actually do the open discussion, like Jeff had said at the very beginning, I'm going to talk more about how the elections work, and then that part can be included in the discussion as well. Okay, so just to help with any questions that come up or issues that are going on or the logistics of the election process, there's an election committee. So that is myself, I'm Benny Wheat, Bill Gage, who spoke earlier in this presentation, Jeff Warren, who spoke at the very beginning, and Wig Zamor. So the 4 of us and anyone else who is interested in joining us. So if you are not running for a position on the board and you would like to help with the elections process, you are welcome to join the election committee. So we will be responsible for handling all the nomination materials, all that business, counting the votes, all the stuff. So in order to run yourself for the Neighborhood Council Founding Board, you have to do a couple of things. There's a few steps that are going to go on. So first you have to nominate yourself. So you will have to sort of decide you want to run, decide which seat you want to run for, get at least 5 people to sign your nomination papers, and those 5 people have to fit the criteria of the membership of the Union Square Neighborhood Council that Jacob was describing. So they have to live in Somerville or work in Union Square. So you get those 5 people to sign at least 5, maybe more than 5, to sign your nomination papers. You submit a candidate statement, that's a brief statement saying why you would like to run. And you submit all these, and a photo so that we can promote your candidacy with your statement. And you submit all these materials to the election committee. And you can submit it by email. You can submit it in person at Bill Gage's house. You can mail it to us. We have a P.O. box. The address is in the election material, so if you decide to run, you have all the info. So you submit all that stuff by the 7th of July is the deadline. So end of day, 7th of July is the deadline if you want to be a candidate. Then there's a 2-week period for you to campaign in whatever way you decide you want to do that. It could be just within your social networks. It could be email blast. It could be anything you want it to be. Then we're going to have the elections. So like I was saying, the elections will take place on 2 different days. And on the first of those 2 days, which is the 22nd of July, there will also be a candidates forum. So you can give a little speech. Each person who's running can give a brief speech to anyone who arrives that day for the elections, and then the elections will commence. So there will be a 4-hour window that you can come and vote on that day, and then a couple of days later on the 26th, there will also be a 4-hour window where you can come and vote. So voting is in person on those 2 occasions, and at the end of the voting on the 26th, we'll count the ballots, and then we'll know who's on the...
You can also give a speech on that day if you wish.
Oh, you can give a speech on the second day also. 2 opportunities for speeches. And then at the end of the second round of voting, we'll count all the ballots, we'll know who has been elected, and then we will have our founding board for the neighborhood council. So that is how you run. If you are interested in running and you live in Union Square or work in Union Square, we have the election packets with all that information that I was just saying over here at the desk. You can talk to the folks at the desk if you want to pick up one of those packets. And I think that's all the information I have to relay. Great.
Yes.
Yes.
That's right.
And so what you just described will follow Saturday's meeting?
You're right. Yeah.
Same
My mistake. It's not after tonight that the Union Square Neighborhood Council will commence. Thank you. We're going to have the same meeting again on Saturday for anyone who was not able to attend today. We'll collect all the ballots from today. We'll collect all the ballots from Saturday and tally them up at that point. Excellent clarification.
Can you write down names of the staff?
Hey, everybody. I'm back. I've got a couple things. First, if you are interested in being on the election committee, which if you have strong opinions about elections and how they are run, I recommend that you do, there's a sign-up sheet here. We'll put it by the sign-in over there, and just ask for your name and contact information. And that would be great.
Yeah.
Thank you. So the portion of the evening that I'm going to run now, it's going to go for, I'm trying to do math in my head. Sorry, 25 minutes approximately, and at 8:20, we're going to start what we're going to introduce now, which is this vote. And the reason for that is that we only have the room until 9 p.m., so we want to make sure there's enough time for everyone to do that. Sorry? Oh, yeah. And when that happens, we'll be passing the ballot boxes around. We'll be coming around with them. So before we get to that, of course, we have to have discussion. So now, just to give you a sense of the time, I wanted to read that out. So what I wanted to do is, I know a lot of people have thoughts to share, questions to ask, so I'm going to do my best to facilitate that. And, the group up here can answer some questions, other people who have been at the working group can answer questions, but also, if you've been involved in the process, or if you haven't and you have questions about it, things like that, now is the time. I'm going to do my best to make sure a lot of people have an opportunity to speak, so I would ask you to please, state your questions briefly, and if it's possible to have only one question at a time so that we can circle back and everyone gets a chance, that would be really great as well.
Can they be statements as well as...
Oh, of course. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, statements, thoughts, any of the above. And just to be very clear, the topic is going to be related to the ballots that you've each gotten if if you meet the requirements, like in Somerville or live and work in Union Square. And I'll just read that. It's, do you support a Union Square Neighborhood Council as structured by the Union Square Neighborhood Council Working Group, as shown in today's presentation? You'll have a chance to place the ballots starting at 8:20 in the boxes, but also if you're really not sure or you need more time, there is another opportunity on Saturday. That said, this ballot has been given out to you because you signed in tonight. So this is the ballot you get. You can drop it in the box now, or you can drop it in the box then. That's just to make sure people don't vote twice. Sorry, each person who is signed in gets one ballot, and we'll be checking the rolls to make sure people didn't sign up and get a ballot twice. Thank you. Show of hands, please, and we're going to do our best to keep a list of people who raise their hands so that we can get around the room, and please be patient with us as we do that.
And can you please go to the mic? There's a mic right here in the center of the room, because this is all being recorded.
Yeah, and if you can't go to the microphone, then please do raise your hand, and I will make sure that you get in the stack in the right spot. Thank you.
Raise your hands again. I didn't get everybody.
Well, are people going to go up to the microphone then?
Oh, you just go up in a line. Yeah, 'cause I
Yeah,
don't
is
know
that all right?
anybody's names.
Okay,
Yeah,
go ahead.
That makes more sense.
Okay,
Good job.
yeah, but yeah, please do if
I'll
you.
walk around with the microphone.
That'd be great. All right, so the microphone is right by the gentleman in the blue shirt. Hey, wait, that doesn't have amplification? Okay, so I'm afraid for logistical reasons, we're going to have to ask people to come up to here and line up. I apologize again, but we'll do our best. I think you were first. And if we could queue this way, that would be really great. And feel free to use the seats here.
What
kind of power does the neighborhood council have?
It's a good question. Does someone want to speak to that?
I guess I'll start. My real answer to this is as much as the people who join the organization allows them to have, right? So because all decisions are made by 2/3 of the entire body, of the Union Square Council, it really is up to all the people who join. Jacob wants to make any more about that?
So the city is actually very interested in having neighborhood councils, and there is a community benefits ordinance that's being drafted right now by the alderman that has the capacity to interact with neighborhood councils. And so at the very least, a neighborhood council would have the ability to suggest where certain funds might go that come out of negotiations that the city has made with the developer. So that's one piece of it. But there's other pieces that people who are envisioning a neighborhood council have for it. And one of those would be to negotiate directly with developers to make sure that the voice of the community that it's building is particularly heard, and that this body would be the point of contact between Union Square and the people who are building it. So what shape those negotiations would take, we do not know. But there is, in the covenant signed by the mayor, there is a clause saying that this particular developer that owns the development blocks that were shown in the previous slides, that they are obligated to negotiate in good faith with a neighborhood council. So that sort of gives you the sort of the small version, which is maybe applying for funds, versus maybe a larger role, which is actual negotiations. And then there's other things, simply, as we said, providing feedback, providing a forum, and things of that nature.
Thank you.
Yes, some of it, but I also want to know not only the power, but also what kind of people could run, because let's say I'm an immigrant and I have some skills in some areas, but I don't have skills in engineering or zoning laws or any of those things. Could I still run because I'm invested in inclusion and well-being and other things that are very important for this community? That's what I want to know.
Heck yeah, of course. The answer is, of course, and please do. Of course, and please do. Also, can you try and state your name, please, so we can learn to know you?
I'm Philip Parsons. I've been involved in this process since its inception, lived here for 25 years. I am amazed by the quality of thought and dedication that we've seen this evening in the presentation, and the sincerity and caring shown. But I'm going to vote against this not because I don't think we need a neighborhood council. I think it's a wonderful idea. But because I think the bylaws aren't quite ready for prime time. I'll just explain briefly what I mean. I'm an immigrant. I qualify for 6 of the 7 categories. I have no idea how I would run if I was going to, which I'm not. And that would apply to a lot of people in this room. And that's a problem, because let's say I was a wonderful candidate and 2 of my fellow immigrants were also wonderful candidates. We all signed up to be immigrants rather than residents. And we all got 50 votes, 50 plus votes. But somebody else who had all the same qualifications, maybe not 6, signed up for something else where there was only 1 candidate and they only got 1 vote. Well, they would get to be on the board and none of us, or only 2 of us would, let's say. So it needs work. It's a wonderful idea to be inclusive and have a broad representation, but it needs further clarification. And in fact, there was no description of how the voting would actually be managed in this presentation, so it clearly needs work anyway. But that's my reservation, so I'm voting no, and I know a number of other people in this room are, not because we don't like the idea of a neighborhood council, but we'd like a little more time to figure out how it can really work to get the kind of diversity and skill set that the council needs to be effective. Thank you.
Thank you. And just for clarification as well, the founding board, the bylaws that describe the founding board are not designed to be the permanent bylaws. So the 1 year of time specified is intended to address some of those issues, and I acknowledge that may not be a perfect way forward, but just to, I appreciate the comment on the challenges before us.
I just think it could easily be fixed.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Penny Taylor. I've been a Union Square resident for 8 years. I run a business from my apartment on Quincy Street. I was first attracted to this neighborhood and moved here because it was a real community. It wasn't a wind tunnel or it wasn't it wasn't transit mayhem, it was a real community. And I feel like that is being threatened, and what we have in front of us is an opportunity to have a voice in what's moving forward. Tonight I'm going to vote yes and support the neighborhood council to fight for the heart of Union Square. The proposed structure I think is thoughtful, I think it is adaptable, and I think it will serve us well moving forward as a negotiating body for all of us. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kelly. I've lived around Union Square for about 3 years. I don't like public speaking, so sorry. But I still am a little confused about the structure of the board, and specifically, I guess I'm not clear whether this is like a public office that is associated with Town Hall, or if this is like individuals in Union Square coming together. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great point to clarify. So this is a question, actually, that in the bylaws is specifically left to the founding board and the membership in that first year, because we realize there has to be a particular kind of relationship between this body and the city. And the question is it part of city government, essentially? And working with the mayor's office, they've been very open and clear with people who have been involved in the working group, sort of outlining different paths that this group could take and different costs and benefits associated with being part of city government or being an independent 501c3 organization. And so that kind of decision we felt would be best sort of left to the election, or to the founding board and the membership once it's more formal, because the ordinance that governs that relationship also is not finalized. So it's a very good question, and we just don't know yet.
Hi, Nancy Barron. I qualify for at least 4 of the categories, so this isn't a personal question, but I was just wondering why owners only have 2 spots and renters have 3?
No, I think, because I think there are, because I believe that 80% of the Union Square area are renters.
Okay, and
Yeah, so Somerville's population is dominated by renters, not homeowners. Like Chelsea and very few other communities in Massachusetts, that's why.
okay, and I'd also like to agree. I'm sorry, I forgot your name. What you said was very pertinent, and I totally agree with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Amy. I'm a renter for 7 years, and I'm concerned about the timing of the vote and that there's only 2 meetings for the wider community before the vote for candidates. And I want to know what you guys are thinking about doing for candidate outreach, because I'm not sure, you brought interpreters here tonight, but I'm not sure I saw any flyers printed in Portuguese or Spanish or Creole.
They were.
They were? Okay, because I live in a building, I'm the only native English speaker in my building, but we only got English.
Oh, that's okay.
Fine.
But they were.
I think it's a very serious issue, and I was directly involved in outreach on the translation questions. We've been working hard to get the website translated, but there's a lot more content. Personally, I think the bylaws should be translated. That's a very large piece of content. We did have 4 language flyers, and we had. I'm very grateful to the city for their assistance in helping to get the translations, as well as some other organizations who chipped in on the translations and helped print a lot of the flyers and the people who put them out. But I think that is a very, very large and serious task, which I would agree. We really need to do our utmost to, just translating the flyers is not enough. And I think that's something that I'm hoping to take part in the election committee.
Okay. I still want to know, it's only a month until these elections. How do you plan on recruiting more candidates or anything like that? Or what's your outreach plan?
I mean, I'm involved in the outreach for the working group. I haven't yet volunteered for outreach for the elections, but I will. I think there are a lot of groups helping to get out the word through this event, through the event on Saturday, and the candidates event happening on the first of the two evenings is not to say that that's the only time that candidates would speak, or that for example, I think that I would like to help candidates in general get the word out. If I'm on the elections committee, I can't do that for a specific candidate, but I would encourage everyone here to pitch in, because getting out the word and getting a broad and diverse group of candidates is the most important thing we can do to assure that the neighborhood council goes in the right direction, I think. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Dan Madry. I live on Avon Street. I've been a Somerville resident for the past 21 years and Union Square resident for the past 8. I plan on voting yes tonight, and are the bylaws perfect? No, but I think they're very thoughtful, and I think more importantly, they are open and basically have structured themselves so they can be changed. I think timing is of the essence. We are staring down the barrel of a gun with this development. The MLDA has been agreed to. This is what we have to fight for what we need from US2. The only people who benefit from this process taking longer and longer are the developers. So I'm voting yes, and I hope that you do too.
Hi, my name is Tori Antonino. My question is about timing. So the election, to submit your election candidacy, that's going to be 16 days away. I feel like just now we're getting the word out and we're reaching people. And it feels like I've been involved since December with this. And it's been, even though our outreach, we've had great people doing it, I feel like just now we're sort of reaching everybody. And I feel that 2 weeks to decide that you're going to be a candidate is just too soon. I feel like you'd like to push it a couple of weeks back. And my other question is, if we're voting, is there gonna be are we gonna do like a mail-in voting for people who are on vacation? So I feel in a way having the 22nd and the 24th, we're gonna be not serving people who might not even be in the city at that time. Couldn't present that.
Thank you. Did you want to speak to that?
Voting will be by ballot, and there won't be any absentee voting. We just don't have the resources to undertake that.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mike Gibbs. I'm a homeowner in Union Square, I live on Park Place. I've lived in Somerville for about 10 years now. I was a renter for about 8 years, and I just recently, with my wife, got a house, which is pretty remarkable. I think probably everybody in this room recognizes how ridiculous that is, even though it's just kind of a regular house. And that's, I think, one of the problems that we're dealing with right now. It was like a miracle for us to get a house, which is now like some crazy castle. It's just a house. And I think that's the reality that the neighborhood council is working with right now, to try and create a situation where stuff like that's not so much of a miracle. Where people who have lived in Union Square for years or are new to Union Square, I really love it here, have the opportunity to stay. New people can come in, they have the opportunity to build their life here. In the 10 years that I've been in Union Square, I've seen a lot of change. I'm sure that the people who have been here for longer have seen even more than that, and that the Union Square that I saw 10 years ago looked like a far sight removed from the Union Square 20 years ago. But it feels like it's ratcheting up, and this tremendous development that's coming right now is something that I think we're staring right in the face. And the neighborhood council sounds like a great way to begin addressing some of the challenges that that presents to the preservation of our community. Again, are the bylaws perfect? It doesn't seem like they are, but they're flexible, right? And they do move us further towards being able to, as a community, respond to an external force that is going to improve our community in a lot of ways. Commercial development is great for us, right? And we don't necessarily need to oppose that kind of stuff, but we need to make sure that it happens in a way that takes into account what's so special about our community, preserves that stuff, and is sensible about it, and that it's binding to the promises that are being made to us that allow stuff like that to go forward. So I'm going to vote for this. I think it's a great opportunity for us to all get increased participation in this kind of thinking, to develop our own knowledge about this and to be a part of what happens in our community moving forward. Thanks.
The gentleman, Mr. Madry, just spoke. I pretty much agree with the comment about delay and who benefits from delay. The one thing that will continue to delay our effect is if a neighborhood council is created that does not have broad support and is perceived not to have legitimacy broadly within the community. So this effort to do outreach is very strong, but to that end, I think it's extremely important that we understand what we're voting on and that what is being voted on is solid. So to the gentleman who just spoke, speaking about the flexibility of the bylaws, that's precisely my question. If the vote tonight and Saturday should pass, to what extent will that be regarded as a ratification of the bylaws?
Thank you. So that's a very good question, and I think in this case, when you look at the ballot, it's really what we discussed in bulk tonight and what we presented really was structure, membership and board. And so I think that the bylaws themselves will be part of the election. And so those, I think people need more time to review, but the structure and membership are where most of the edits took place and where most of the discussion took place around. As I had mentioned, the bylaws were something that had been with us basically since January, and people felt pretty comfortable with them. So if that clarification makes people feel more comfortable, I think that's what we should be focusing on.
Jacob, when you say people were comfortable with them, who do you mean?
I'm referring to the people who participated in the process through the working group. So this was a process that started in January and then it cycled through various iterations. And basically, the bylaws that were around an appointed body were adapted to deal with an elected body. And they were developed by looking at neighborhood council bylaws from around the country. So we looked at Jamaica Plain neighborhood council bylaws. We looked at ones from Boston, also I think from Seattle. So we were trying to pull things together that would make a framework for a robust organization. And I would just also like to clarify that the bylaws are not in themselves the organization. It's going to be the people who participate. And there's nothing really deterministic in them.
I just want to finish with a quick statement. First of all, I became aware of the bylaws a month ago, and in particular the proscriptive membership quotas for the founding board. The more I think about it, the less comfortable I am. I think driving for representation and participation is an excellent idea. However, I think that those proscriptions are an inch of water that this process could get drowned in, and I am very concerned about how it will be regarded by the broader population, by city council, et cetera. I think it's worth taking the time to reconsider that question. And there are also some other technical defects which I'm more confident that could get ironed out. For example, meetings could be called within 48 hours, but a change to the agenda requires 78 hours of warning, that kind of thing. So I think, I repeat Philip's comment that the bylaws need more attention, but the concept is good.
Thank you. We're going to keep taking questions. In about 5 minutes, we're going to begin walking around with ballot boxes, as I mentioned at the beginning of the discussion session. But I'll continue to facilitate. And as to the last point that was made, also, in particular to the question of if the vote that we're doing tonight and Saturday passes and we move forward with the election, I was one of a lot of people whose original idea of how the council would work is not ultimately what is in the bylaws. And there were a lot of difficult discussions and compromises made to reach something that we could all live with and we think is flexible enough. So I guess I'd just like to say, if that does happen and we move forward with the election, I would encourage people who feel strongly about the bylaws to run and or support someone who is running to modify them, because that is within the abilities of the founding board to do almost immediately. So thank you. And that's just speaking individually.
My name is Gary Trujillo. I have lived in Somerville for over 33 years and in Union Square for over 6 years. I have participated in the working group deliberations since their inception, and I've been involved in thinking about and attending meetings about this subject for over 2 years now. The previous speaker has made my task easier, covering some of the questions and concerns that I have myself. I just mainly want to ask a couple of questions, not necessarily because I don't know the answers, but I think we all deserve to have answers to these things. One of them has to do with making as clear as possible that the vote we're taking tonight, as I heard Jeff say a moment ago, is not necessarily ratification of the bylaws. It is simply an agreement that we approve the idea of a neighborhood council as it's been described in structural terms. One of my overall concerns, I've attended meetings with the mayor and his staff and gone to meetings with the aldermen and all those kinds of things. And I think when we're dealing with people who have those skills of our elected officials and like developers who are very savvy folks, we have to be on a par with them to be effective in what we hope to accomplish. And we also need political legitimacy, which I think is extremely important. We have to be perceived and to be able to think of ourselves as really representing the broader community. So my second point has to do with the question of the bylaws themselves. There was an email exchange earlier today, actually it started yesterday, with a number of specific concerns about the bylaws as presently written, and I'm surprised I haven't heard those points having been raised in specific terms by any of the previous speakers. And I think that it goes back to that first question of what it is we're voting to approve tonight and Saturday. And if it's not the bylaws, what is it? And I guess I'm running out of steam, but you know, I have some concerns that down the road we may find ourselves in a place where other of our neighbors are able to say, well, I never knew about these meetings. They weren't properly advertised, as someone was saying earlier. And the way it was done was very rushed. I remembered my other point. I'd like a good description, maybe Jeff or Michelle can give it, of why do we need to do this why do we need to approve the bylaws and to have the elections as soon as is currently planned? What happens if we don't do it that quickly? Some of the pressure has been taken off, perhaps, by the approval of the zoning, which happened just a week or two ago, and so we no longer have that as a reason. So I'm sure there are other reasons, and I'd like to hear an articulation of what those reasons are. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Yeah, and just to clarify that, the wording of the ballot was very specifically crafted, and I have to admit, I think I've lost my ballot, which may mean that I can't vote, but it's in one of my pockets. But it was specifically, which isn't good, yeah. It specifically, I'll just read it out again. Do you support a Union Square Neighborhood Council as structured by the Union Square Neighborhood Council Working Group as shown in today's presentation? And I would say that the bylaws were presented in the presentation.
Sorry, yeah, I misspoke. Jeff's correct.
Thank you. We're going to continue the discussion, but as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to ask the folks at the ballot boxes to go around. You, of course, don't have to put your ballot in the box, but they're going to come around in case you want to. Absolutely. And just to note the time of the meeting, the reason I'm asking for that is that we have to close up at 9 here. But there's another opportunity to speak on Saturday as well. To the question that was raised.
To the issue of timing, why do we need to get this done? Because, and this is a really bad pun or whatever it is, the train is leaving the station. It literally is. I was involved in the zoning. I went to most of the meetings. Things are happening much quicker than I think that people actually realize. I really do. And it's not because any of the people in here have done their due diligence or there are things that have happened that I don't know about and that have been going on. My father was on locust, I didn't even know it, to be honest with you. Do you know what I'm saying? So these things have moved forward, things have happened already, and it is, and also I really, really want to point two things out. This is an interim board, 1 year. We want to be able to work with everybody in the community, for everybody to have a voice, but we also don't want to excuse me 1 second, I am totally going to let you speak in a minute, Andy. We don't want to miss our opportunity. We don't want to miss our opportunity or fail. Here, Andy, do you really need to speak?
No,
go ahead,
because everyone's already putting in their votes. I encourage anyone who hasn't read the bylaws to at least skim them, and you can turn in your ballot Saturday, just so that you're informed. But I'll say more later.
That's great.
Everyone
Okay, no problem. All right, thank you. So anyway, so now I lost my train of thought a little bit. But why is it important? So there are things that continuously happen. We need to be up and running so we can face those obstacles or deal with the things that come up. And again, everything needs a 2/3 vote. Everything needs a 2/3 vote. That will be passed. Okay. And the other thing is, and I'm going to reiterate this. There are a lot of organizations that have worked really hard here. I was not there when your bylaws were passed, and I'm not mad about it. I wasn't invited to join, and I'm not mad about it. I just need you to know that. I don't think you're legitimate, and I don't think we are either.
Thank you. Excuse me, ma'am. Excuse me, ma'am. I understand that you feel we should wait before circulating with the ballot boxes. We're going to continue to let them speak. Yes. But you don't have to, just to re-emphasize, nobody has to put a ballot in. We're just providing that for people because we have only till 9 o'clock and
Can you let the people talk? The whole process is
the folks,
people standing in line.
folks, please don't yell out and interrupt one another. I'm trying to address the concern that I understand you have.
If you would like to address it, just pass the mic to the next person, please.
Man, I'm trying to explain, we promised the city we had a timeline, so that's why we're doing it, and you're not obligated to vote. Thank you very much for your concern.
He deserves to have a vote.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, absolutely she does.
Hi, my name is Emma. I'm a resident on Walnut Street and a renter. My understanding from the presentation is that what we were presented tonight was a summary of the bylaws and not the actual bylaws themselves. For people who are interpreting this as an election ratifying the bylaws, where can we read them?
UnionSquareNeighborhoodCouncil.org. Thank you.
You could try to pull them. Actually, they're very long.
They do exist. Click on bylaws on the thing, there's a PDF at the bottom. It's there.
Hi, my name is Anna Scheimitz. I'm a renter in Union Square. I'm really new to this whole community organization process, but I was wondering if there was any thought to electing a leader of the founding board or of the Union Square Council. Because I think as we've seen tonight, it's one thing to come up with a lot of ideas and to have a lot of discussion, but it's quite another to make a decision on those things. It's a lot harder, I think, than sometimes people realize, and I was wondering if that was part of the consideration. Thanks.
So in the bylaws, wonderful bylaws, there's provisions for co-chairs at each meeting. So there will be facilitation by co-chairs. And then there are also officers such as the treasurer. Co-chairs and treasurer and a secretary.
Also, to make sure. And also, every meeting, there has one of the co-chairs has to facilitate, but a member who is not on the board, who is in the general group, will also facilitate, making sure that the people who are in the overall group are always a part of what is being put forward and how it's being done. So, thank you.
Thank you. And you do too, Mayor.
Yep. So I'll just reiterate, please read or at least skim the bylaws so you know what you're voting for, because it does say if 2/3 of whoever these people vote, you are basically ratifying these interim bylaws, and you should know what you're being bound to. And you should know what those bylaws say about how future amendments will be done, which may involve 2/3 of people coming to a room, so that you'll have to keep attending meetings to have a say and not necessarily mail in ballots or just dropping your ballot off. And also to enact the permanent bylaws because of the 2/3 threshold, we may get caught where we may be stuck with the interim bylaws for a while. We may not. I just encourage everyone to be fully informed before making a vote, because this vote is effectively saying we're pushing forward and these interim bylaws are binding for at least a year, and you will have to follow them in how they guide whatever this council does.
Thank you.
I'm Joe Beckman. I've lived in Somerville about 20 years. I've been on almost every committee since we called for a transfer fee in 1998. And I have 6 quick, simple questions, but they haven't been raised yet. 1, how many voters does it take to give this credibility? No, I don't mean 2/3. How many? I'm a member of the ward committee of the Democratic City Committee for the Democratic Party for Ward 3. I get 1,666 votes every year. How many votes does it take to transform Union Square?
Okay, so my only answer to that is every organization has a beginning. I really don't, and it's usually small. I don't know what the bylaws, I don't know what the vote, how you voted for Union Square neighbors. I have no idea. And honestly, it's not that I don't care. I'm not mad. I actually don't care. Because you had the right, you got together, you put it together, you did the work. And I am sure I missed it. You must have done some outreach. So I'm not mad that I wasn't asked to join. And we will continue. Part of this is to continue to outreach, knock on doors, do whatever we can to get the message out. Sorry.
That's another question. Joe, I'd actually, I think you can ask one more, but I'd actually ask ask you to let other people speak in between some of your
I've been
questions.
waiting while you were talking a great deal.
I know, I'm just asking, I'm not requiring, but I think that would be nice. since
I'll
it's
go
a big
quickly.
one.
Okay, go ahead. So we might not be able to answer each one.
Okay, question 2. If the developer ignores the council, what leverage does the council have?
I'm sorry?
If the developer ignores the council, what leverage does the council have?
I believe that that is stated in the covenant, and that they are held to a standard of working in good faith, and that standard will be mediated. And you said it, and that's in the covenant.
Okay. 3, if the transfer fee is passed, what authority would the council have over spending it? It's undetermined.
I believe that that is undetermined, honestly.
Okay. 4, what kinds of partnership is possible with others who may seek funds or partnerships with the developer? And I'm thinking in this case of things like Artisans Asylum, other kinds of organizations who are interested in creating jobs and careers in Union Square. Are there any formal partnerships already, and has anybody reached out to anybody else?
So
As part of
people from the
planning the
neighborhood
council.
For
Yeah.
the council, I'm not sure, so no. But I also think that part of what you're talking about is being dealt with by, I believe it is the community benefits agreement. That is something that is
Ordinance.
Ordinance, that's right, the community benefit ordinance, and that is where people would go for funds. One way, one area.
How would a member support a priority of their employer without a conflict of interest?
Okay, so in the bylaws, we are going to follow, I believe, with the statute, I think we can answer this, we're going to, the state ethics, but we can talk about that.
So, just a couple things. So the city has made two things clear from the beginning. Until there is a single group that speaks for Union Square, there will not be a recognized community group that speaks for Union Square. And that's one of the timing issues. I think people can certainly raise issues of whether the ideas are perfected enough to form a group, or whether it's better to form a group at this stage and give them the power to perfect those ideas further with everybody's broad participation. But so the city has also made clear that no matter whether it is a private entity, like a 501c3, which would have certain powers and abilities, or a municipal entity, which would have other abilities, the city will expect every member of the board to comply with the state ethics tests. So those are very strict about conflicts of interest. You cannot have any potential financial conflict, either personally or with an entity you work for, or with an entity for which you serve on a board. So you couldn't serve on this community board and also have an entity you are part of apply for funds through it, okay?
Good. Finally, I'm actually very much in favor of a council, but I'm very much against this design for a council, so I'm going to be voting no. If I vote no, am I then precluded to running for a seat on it?
No, I
So this ties into a question that I just received from the audience, which is, can it be explained what a no vote means? Is the idea totally scrapped, or will another proposal be made? The way I would frame that, and also in response to Joe, is that I would like this group to view this as the outgrowth of a lot of deliberation and process, and that what we would like is for you to sort of to take a look at what we come up with and say, yeah, I can live with that. I can participate in that. I feel like my voice can be heard in that, and I feel like I could run for something, and I feel like I could vote for people who are running for it. So would the idea totally be scrapped? No. We're going to want to have a neighborhood council. But out of many hours of discussion, certain parts of this framework really emerged. People really wanted an elected group. They really wanted to have seats that represented different parts of the community. They really wanted to have a broad membership that brought in lots of stakeholders. So those ideas are things that people have really gotten behind, and we hope that this group gets behind them too. Thank you.
Oh, and Joe, please.
Yeah, actually that was in the spirit of what I was mentioning earlier in response to Phillips. If it does pass, I encourage people who have strong positive or negative opinions about it to run for it, to try to influence it as quickly as possible.
So if we vote tonight, we're voting to approve the elections process. Is that true?
You're ratifying the bylaws. You are ratifying these interim bylaws if you vote for this.
Which includes the election.
Includes the election.
Okay, so I'm not okay with people, if you're here the 22nd and the 24th, then you're allowed to vote. That is not allowing broad representation for anybody. That's saying, if you're not in town that day, sorry, but you can't vote. I think that's disenfranchising, and I think that's prejudice against people going on vacation. Again, to speak about broad representation, I don't know right now if this is broad representation of the community. It feels a little heavy-handed of a single group. I feel like it's more united people here than it is a broad representation of the community. I'm serious. And I feel, again, that at this time, people are just getting on board, and I think to have legitimacy, we can be not do our job and not have enough people to know about it. And I'm just feeling, again, 2 weeks from now, you have to have your election papers in, and then in 2 weeks, a few weeks later, we're going to vote. I'm just not acceptable with people not being able to vote if they're not here. And so I think having mail-in voting is really important. And I think it's unacceptable otherwise. And yes, I'll be running.
I'm sorry, I guess, and this is not trying to be a punk here, honestly. I don't know who's going to pay for that. Honestly, I don't know how to facilitate it. No, wait, stop. Yeah, please, for 1 minute. I'm asking you just for 1 minute. I'm asking everybody in this room from all your organizations to please, I am not a member of any of these organizations. Okay? This is important. And I'm just asking you to put down your verbal weapons for a minute and think about what's being said here and how important it is. I don't deny some of the things that you're saying. I'd like to speak.
You've spoken.
You've spoken. This is my...
Yeah, let someone else speak. You're breaking the rules.
Excuse me.
I think. Is she responding to a question?
I'm responding to a question, yes.
Folks, please, we're doing our best to give everyone a chance to speak.
Okay, I just want to make you understand as the second man in this room that has told me to shut up. And I don't want it to happen again, please, thank you. Okay, so here's the bottom line. Bottom line, I'm asking you to come to a vote. I'm asking you to vote today. This is important. This is literally an interim council. I am not a member of any of these things. You don't know me, but the people who have met me through this process and all of these organizations know that I am not a pushover. I'm not a person who just stand by and say, that's fine, let Union United, let Union Square neighbors do whatever they want. That is not who I am. I don't expect you to know that, but I think those people do. Thank you. Sorry.
Hi there. My name is Mike Schlegelmilch. I live on Harold Street. I've been a resident for 3 years. And I'm a high school teacher, and the fact that I'm not at home grading final exams right now shows how important this issue is to me. As somebody who is really looking to have their future be in Somerville and to have Somerville be my home, the issue of the future of Union Square and particularly the development in Union Square is really important to me, and I feel that it's really important that there is a body that can be my voice and that can represent people like me who are not very rich and powerful. And I also feel that this is a very urgent moment, so it's not just that we have that need, it's that this is an urgent need. And when I look at the thoughtfulness that went into the process from the timeline, when I think about the rationales that we were given, I feel confident in what was proposed tonight, even if it is imperfect, and any proposal will be imperfect, and the fact that this one can be changed, and the fact that we can all participate in that one is the reason that it has gotten my vote tonight. So I just want to thank everybody who put together this proposal, and I want to encourage everyone to vote yes and participate in the council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Zach Zasloff, 12 Monroe Street. Just like to challenge everyone in this room this evening to take a deep breath, take a step back, and realize we all love Union Square. That's why we're here. The divisiveness and divide that's taking place tonight is so unhealthy and so wrong that we should all go home and take a shower after this meeting, because it is embarrassing. And I'm speaking from past experiences with battling organizations and agencies within Union Square. Nothing good comes from a fight. We should be working together. But the current proposal that is being presented for the neighborhood council, as great as the intentions are for the neighborhood council, and I support it in, you know, the big picture aspect, what's being presented tonight and what we're rushing to vote is not something that we should be pushing across the finish line this evening. I think everyone needs to take a step back, a deep breath. Let's reevaluate, let's recalibrate, because at the end of the day, we all love Union Square, we want what's best for it. We should be fighting US 2, not each other. That's what I have to say.
Hey everybody, thanks for sticking around for a long night. My name is James Crawl. I live up on Vinyl Ave, where I'm raising my 10-month-old child. And first I just want to say a huge thank you to the working group that I know has put so much energy and effort and thought into this process. And I think it's really fantastic to see the diversity of opinions here, and I think it's great that everyone feels really strongly about this. And I also want to reiterate the point that, I don't know his name, but whoever just spoke said, I think we're all here because we care a lot about what's going to happen in this neighborhood. And I think we're having a discussion largely focused around whether these are perfect. I think probably everyone in this room agrees that they're not perfect, but the other part of the question is whether or not they're better than nothing. So, you know, I don't know exactly what the timeline is if this fails tonight, but let's imagine it takes another 6 months or a year. Maybe somebody can say something more precise about that. Now think about, I know a lot of people, I see a lot of faces that have been at public meetings recently. Think about what's happened in the last 6 months or the last year. And so there's also the question of, do we want something more than nothing? Not just whether or not this is perfect. So I'm going to vote very enthusiastically for this process that can also improve the bylaws in the council moving forward. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. I already spoke, so I will be brief. I just want to say that I can't think of anyone here who wouldn't prefer a flawed, democratically elected representative body than the representation that is imposed upon them. And I fear that if this gets bogged down, like it seems to be doing, and gets delayed and delayed and delayed, what we're going to wind up with is a mayor-appointed neighborhood council. And I can't live with that. Thank you.
Hi everybody, my name is Alex Janko. I've been living in Somerville for 8 or 9 years, in Union Square for a year and a half. I hear a lot of people tonight saying that urgency is important and that getting something out there is important. And that's precisely my concern with the structure as we've laid it out today. I've heard that there's 15 people on the council, which is actually pretty big. I mean, if you look at the number of dissenting opinions in this room tonight and how heated it's gotten, I think that's something that we risk doing if we have such a large council as well. I mean, how many aldermen do we have? 7? 11? Okay. I mean, that's for all of Somerville, and that's less than the Union Square Council. And we're also saying that any any motions that get passed need to be ratified by 2/3 of the vote, which again, we have 15 people, that's a significant portion of them. So I'm worried that ratifying what we have tonight may actually slow things down. I mean, I know we're not looking for something that's perfect, but I'm worried that in getting the council as it is right now, we're actually going to slow things down in the long run, and it might be better to have something that's a little bit smaller and maybe has a leader, and a clear leader and a clear set of directions, so we can move things along faster once this actually gets up and running.
So I just want to make a comment about, there seem to be people who feel urgency to get this done because we need to have a say in the development, and people who want a neighborhood council but want to make sure it's done right. Like, everyone cares about Union Square, there seems to be this divide. And I would just say, if you vote no, this isn't going away, come in, it would be reworked, and maybe in a month or 2 months it would be done. But this community benefits ordinance has not been approved yet. It's still being drafted. So the development isn't going to happen overnight. And my only concern is, we could approve this, and it might get off the ground and work. But if we end up with a fractured community and this doesn't have legitimacy because of a lack of broad enough consensus, it could go down the drain and we might not be able to get it back again for 5 years. This is, in a sense, a model for other neighborhood councils around the city, and we want to, at the very least, make sure that there's a broad enough consensus and that it will be able to endure for more than a year and years to come. So just consider that and read the bylaws and see how you feel.
Thank you. Just a quick reflection, hearing everyone tonight. Lots of comments on who we're out doing outreach to, and I encourage you all to go and tell 10 people to come on Saturday. We can all take the word and bring everyone into the conversation. We're all activated, that we care about this. So the word is still being spread. All the posters and words was a dedicated small group. So you all now are imbued with the power to invite people and encourage them to come join this conversation. So please do. Thanks.
I just wanted to reiterate a point that's been mildly made already. My name is Eric New. I've served on the CAC, sort of the two precursors to go by to this, which was an appointed body, which did its best. I just want to say to everybody that might be a naysayer about this, whether you vote yes or whether you vote no, and whether you think that more needs to be done, things need to be perfected, or that things just need to move forward as they are, come out to the meetings, show up beyond tonight, get involved. That's the only way any of this inertia stays. But that goes into the second point, and I reiterate, I said this in an email this morning that I filled many people's inboxes with. But we have, 200, 300 new faces here tonight, or largely new. There's a lot of people in this room that I don't recognize from previous public process meetings. And that's important because different things draw out different people to be engaged at different times. Often you just say the word vote and all of a sudden now people show up. And so I do see the urgency on the one hand, but I also see the inertia on the other hand. And I understand people's skepticism about essentially the board and the way it's structured, about saying, well, if I was a conspiracy theorist, I would say you're expecting an interim board to say, okay, well, one of us has got to go, and we're going to change the way that we're structured. I don't see it that way. I don't believe that will be a problem at all. I actually have a lot of trust in the people that have been doing all this and that we've been working with. I think seeing the more practical problem is simply this group will have a lot to do. It will have a lot of inertia, and it just won't get back to the questions that have been exhausting it for the past 6 months. So that to me is the real concern. It's not malice, it's not anybody intending to do anything, but that's what I have seen unfolding. So if you plan on voting no or yes, I think that Andy was the reason I got up, he inspired me. Whether you vote no or yes on this vote tonight, it's not going away. Come to the meetings, you can't complain otherwise. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Wig. I know a lot of you. So I think there's a legitimate question whether we've had too much process before starting something real in Union Square. We've had many years of city process, we've had years of CAC process, we've had locust process. So what you've seen tonight is the result of 6 months of work by a small group, maybe 30 or 40 people, basically been meeting every other Wednesday and Saturday for 7 hours every 2 weeks, basically. And it took a lot for them to come up with what's here. So certainly there may be many ways to improve that, but the question is, especially for people who don't think it's ready for prime time, is how do we get to that consensus? Because we are going to have that same level of process from everybody today who objected, or certainly some substantive participation by the groups who, or individuals who may want to vote no, or we will not be able to reconcile this in a timely basis. We have been given a little bit of time because of the delay, unfortunate delay in the Green Line, but that is back on track now. It's out to bid. Construction has restarted already. The builder will be picked this fall and then given a formal final notice to proceed very early next year. And with the zoning, with the covenant, with the MLDA, with Somerville Redevelopment Authority, things are moving on this development, and we do not at this point have a community voice which is recognized. So it's okay to vote no, it's okay to vote yes, but we collectively have to get to a place where we're functional as soon as it's practical. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have a quick comment because I already spoke. And my name is Anu Zakin, by the way. I work with a lot of families because I'm a psychotherapist, and I know there are a lot of families, immigrant families here, 20% I imagine, are very disenfranchised, and they are very worried about, having to leave Somerville because it's getting very expensive and so forth. So those people have 2 jobs, they have children, they are not able to attend meetings like this today. And I've been here 24 years, and this is my 3rd or 4th meeting because I'm also one of them. So it's really hard for us to be here in person, and I'm hoping that independently of me running or not and having, some kind of participation in this, I would like the committee to think about making it more accessible and easier for those people as well.
I'm afraid I have to call it a close, I think, because we have 5 minutes left. The gentleman was still in line, and I'm going to ask him to say something, one more thing briefly, and then we'll wrap it up here.
Hi, thanks. So I'll make this really brief. I want to say something just because this is the end of this meeting. So I work in tech, and there's a lot of nuanced arguments about how we're going to do this and how we're going to do that. But there's a concept that I think works really well, and it's called disagree and commit, right? And what that means is that you acknowledge that you disagree, but you commit to help the team move forward. So I have no idea how this vote is going to go. It might be a no, it might be a yes. None of us in here know how it's going to go. What I want each person to do here is to ask yourself to disagree and commit if it comes to that, so that all of us in this room, whether we get what we wanted or whether we don't get what we wanted, can move this community forward with whatever the outcome of this vote is. So that's something I think we should all probably try to keep in mind.
Thank you, everybody. We're going to wrap it up. The ballot boxes are still by the door. I'm going to ask maybe one of them, if we could have it walked around to make it easier for people to vote, and at least one will be at the sign-up sheet. Thank you for your patience and for being respectful to one another, and thank you for your time.